Hey everyone, welcome back to Poplar Preparedness. We got a lot of stuff going on right now. You're probably going to hear all the channels on YouTube start repeating this ad nauseum. But a report came out. I traced it back to Nikkei over in Asia. One of their sites reported, basically they aggregated information from the U.S. Department of Agriculture. And that states that China has now amassed, and beginning of next year, it will have amassed 69% of the world's corn reserves will now be in China, the beginning of 2022. 60% of the world's rice reserves will be sitting in Chinese warehouses. 51% of the world's wheat will be sitting in Chinese warehouses. And they don't actually specifically throw that out there, but it's also in the original article. Over 35% of the world's soybeans will also be in Chinese warehouses. Now, China takes up 20% of the world's population. So the fact that they are hoarding food to this level, and they are importing it like nobody's business right now. So these U.S. Department of Agriculture numbers include the stuff that they've already ordered that should be delivered to them early in 2022. So this is something that's kind of catching a whole bunch of people. We've been saying that China's been importing massive amounts of food, that they've been buying up all the grains out there that they can get their hands on that aren't nailed down. And this is what it's starting to look like. U.S. Department of Agriculture saying 69% of the world's corn is going to be physically in China. This by about when we're talking about the Olympics starting. February 4th, the Olympics start in Beijing, China. And that means there's going to be a lot of stuff that's going to happen. First thing that we're already seeing right now is China is kind of starting to put lockdowns all over the country. They want no political dissent, period. Any provinces that might have some political dissent, they are locking down right now. We see that the cough is going around, and they are locking down cities the size of New York City. They just locked down Xi'an, which is kind of one of the central cities that kind of forms like the inner ring of defenses against the western and northern territories, the sparsely populated territories. Basically, to get in from the outer territories, you kind of have to go in through one of these major cities. Well, they've locked down that whole city. They've shut down all the factories. Samsung's chip manufacturing in China is completely focused in on Xi'an. And so that is like Samsung's chips have been shut down. People have been locked in their homes for the last 7 days in that city. The city is, I believe, 10 million people. And the people are literally being locked in their homes, and people are getting on social media saying we're starving. We don't have any food. Can anyone get us some food? Because they're not being allowed to go out to shop for food. They're not allowed to leave their house for any reason whatsoever until they're tested. And then at that point, if they test negative, they're going to start letting people out of their homes, supposedly. This is huge. One of the major cities in China is locking down completely over the cough. If that spreads to other cities, we're talking about another wave of factories being shut down at a moment when the supply chain is already really, really bad. Whenever China has something where they have they need to have their air pollution under control, they shut down power plants like nobody's business. Across the country, we're going to see coal power plants shut down regardless of whether people need that for heat or not, whether those factories need that energy or not. We're going to see over the next month, China is going to shift every bit of its resources into making sure that the Olympics go off without a hitch. They're going to make sure there's no political dissent. They're going to make sure that there is no air pollution. They're going to make sure that there is no coughs going around. They are going to shut down factories willy-nilly if that's what it takes. They are going to lock every single person in their country in their homes if that's what it takes. They need to present the perfect image to the world over these next few days, over these next couple months. So over the next 2 months, if they shut down all exports, period, they will do so. So if your company is waiting on critical materials coming from China, they may not get that. And that's something that is a reality that we need to face up to. You got to ask yourself the question, why is China buying up ridiculous amounts of food? We've had some really bad harvests in wheat this past year, and so China has been buying up everything not nailed down. They're packing their warehouses full. What about you? Because I can promise you one thing, the United States government is not packing away food for you. Not packing away food for your family. The UK government is not packing away food for you. The Canadian government is not packing away food for you. Over in the Western countries, there are no strategic grain reserves. There are no strategic corn reserves. There is strategic maple syrup reserves out there, but there are no corn, wheat, soybean reserves. Those are just what's in the factory, what the farmers have, and then what have gone into silos that are managed by companies and such. But they've been selling this stuff completely to China without even a thought about what future needs in the United States are going to be. And the U.S. Department of Agriculture is saying that around the time of the Olympics, China will have 69% of the corn in the entire world. That's a lot of corn. That also means there's a lot less corn for the rest of us. A lot less corn, and you say, well, I don't eat corn, I don't do that kind of stuff. We're talking about what is fed to livestock, which means beef, which means hogs, which means, across the board, what do you think chickens eat? They eat corn, mostly. So what we're finding is that soybeans, wheat, rice, China is stacking this stuff to the rafters, and we need to be paying attention because there is no one coordinating to make sure that the United States doesn't run out. There's no one coordinating to make sure the UK doesn't run out. What happens when there just isn't any more? Well, in a perfect market system, we would just buy it back from China, right? But what happens if China just says no? What happens like in this past year when Russia said they weren't going to export any more wheat until their harvest came in? What happens when that happens? What happens when Russia says, no, we're not exporting any food? That's going to be a huge, huge issue. What happens when other countries do that? What happens when Argentina does it again? We're not talking about things that could happen that haven't happened in 20, 30 years. We're talking about things that literally happened months ago. Months ago, countries had export bans on their food. Then the harvest came in and things eased up a little bit. But in a couple months, we may see those bans come back in a hurry. And when they do, there's just not enough food. I think there's this fundamental misunderstanding that if we lose 5% of the wheat supply in the world, okay, I think a lot of people kind of think that, well, when you get to the shelf, there's going to be 5% less wheat products on the shelf. And that's not how it works. See, everyone's going to keep eating the same amount of wheat, generally speaking, unless they need to get forced over to something else. People see shortages, they immediately start buying more. And when they start buying more, we don't have a 5% shortfall. Now suddenly we have a 15, 20% shortfall. And you go to the store, you see empty shelves. You've seen this whenever there's a storm, whenever there's a snowstorm. You go into the grocery store and you're like, where'd all the food go? Because people started buying 15, 20% more food to stock up for a couple days, and the store just can't handle that. Because the store knows exactly how much there should be sold on a Tuesday in January. When there's a Tuesday in January with a snowstorm that hits Wednesday, they're not stocked up for that. The food just goes poof, gone. The same thing when that happens across the board, across the country, across the world, food disappears really, really fast. And you know what happens to most of it? Companies buy it up. Companies buy it. We always talk about the hoarder, the person who buys a little too much, and those shameful people. Those people usually don't buy all that much. They usually don't have very much. They can't really make that big of a dent. The people that make a big dent is when a company, a warehouse says, actually, let's hold on to this product for another week. When they have, a couple 100 tons of something, and they're just like, let's not distribute that out this week. Let's hold on to that next week because we can sell it for more next week. That's where you really get significant issues in the supply chain. That's where you really get real numbers changing. Not only do we have these issues, but then we also have some other things flying below the radar. We've had outbreaks of bird flu. Now, bird flu usually doesn't cross over to humans, but as it starts to spread, people have to start culling large numbers of chickens. And this is huge. We've seen thousands and thousands of chickens killed in the UK. We see an outbreak happening in the UK. It's supposedly contained for now, but there's birds that fly past those chicken farms, right? And those birds can catch the bird flu and take it to another place. UK has an outbreak of bird flu. Israel has an outbreak of bird flu. France has an outbreak of bird flu. Czech Republic has an outbreak of bird flu, and Slovenia has an outbreak of bird flu. This is an extremely contagious disease that can cause tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of chickens to be culled without harvesting their meat. Egg production can be seriously, seriously damaged. Not only this, but we also have the African swine flu going around. In Malaysia and Thailand, there is an outbreak of African swine flu. This is not harmful to humans, but it is deadly to pigs. And this is causing a serious problem over there. Dominican Republic continues to have an outbreak of African swine flu, which is huge because it's so close to the United States. If that jumps from Dominican Republic and Haiti to the United States, we're going to have some serious, serious issues. China had a real problem with African swine flu decimating their herds the last couple of years. Germany also has a potential outbreak of African swine flu. They keep catching it in wild pigs running across the countryside, but they have not found African swine flu in any domesticated pigs yet. But if that happens, it will be huge. So we have all these things playing out, and the question I have for you is, how stable, how secure is your supply chain? Everything that you need, the food you buy, the fuel that you use, everything that you need for you and your family, how secure is it? How much of that's coming from China? How much of that's coming from some other country? How much of that is coming from places very, very far away? We need to localize our supply chains. You and I need to think very clearly about where we get our stuff, where we get the food, where we get the energy, where we get everything. We need to localize that as fast as possible because this whole supply chain is about to break. When China shuts down for 2 months, what do you think is going to happen? When they shut down for 2 months for the Olympics, Is that going to make the supply chain better or worse? Is that going to create more shortages or less shortages? The fact that most of the wheat and grain and corn have gone over to China, and the United States silos are going to be running on empty as we exit the spring here. Is that going to be good or bad for your store shelves? That's not a hard trick question. That's a very simple, straightforward question. If we have a bad harvest in Brazil, if we have a bad harvest in the United States in these coming months, winter wheat, when we look at spring wheat, if we have some bad harvests, and if Brazil has some bad harvests and Argentina has bad harvests, we're going to be in a world of hurt because those grain silos aren't going to fill themselves. These are things you need to be keeping in mind. Just want to provide that information to you. You're going to hear that stat about China stocking up quite a bit. I don't usually like to jump on the bandwagon, but that is huge. I mean, those numbers are just ridiculous. I knew it was bad, but I didn't know it was that bad. All right. Please hit the like button if you get value from these videos. Whenever you're on another preparedness channel or another channel that YouTube's not super great with, please always hit that like button to keep that the algorithm pushing these videos out to other people. Thank you so much. Steve Poplar out.